kill them all is an order we associate with Nazi war criminals, or maybe Hollywood villains like this one. It is not one we associate with American defense secretaries until now. It has been reported by the Washington Post that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave an order to kill them all, a direct order to kill them all, to Special Operations Command that was in charge of the operations to blow up these boats off the coast of Venezuela in the Eastern Pacific and in the Caribbean. And in particular, this order applied to the very first boat attacked by Special Operations Forces. This was a ship that carried 11 alleged narco-traffickers. The Secretary even pushed out video of it. This is the video of that strike. But it's now been reported that that was not the only strike that day. That was not the only strike on that boat. That in fact, there were 2 survivors of that video that we just showed you, and there was a second strike to kill the 2 survivors who were apparently clinging to that vessel. Now, we don't know if this is correct. This is what has been reported by the Washington Post. But if it is accurate, that is a war crime. Now, it's important to realize that all of these actions, all of these blowing up of ships thousands of miles from here are illegal and unconstitutional. There is no congressional authorization to use force. There is no imminent threat of attack on the United States. There's no Article 2 power of the President of the United States to put organizations on a list and then unilaterally decide that he's going to kill everyone on that list. There is no lawful authority to do any of that. But this is a new order of magnitude. This would be a war crime. This would be cold-blooded murder if these reports are accurate. Now, what is the administration saying about this Washington Post report? Well, here's the White House Press Secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, first of all, with the usual Trumpian bravado about how their administration is so much tougher than the Biden administration. But then she's asked a question about this second strike. Did it occur? Did they kill these 2 people? And here's her answer.
So that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
So to be clear, to clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
So in that clip, the White House Press Secretary appears to confirm that yes, there was a second strike, that yes, 2 more people were killed, and names the name of the Special Operations Admiral Bradley, who carried out that second strike order. Now, when the president was asked about that, he had a lot to say. It began with the usual obfuscation, the usual, I don't know about that. Here he is with his denial.
Can you talk a little bit about the strikes and the controversy around Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth?
I don't know anything about it. He said he did not say that, and I believe it.
Now, the president often says that he doesn't know about something that he doesn't want to know about, that in fact he does know about. Whether that's the case here or not, it certainly is suggestive when you listen to the rest of the interview. So here he is with a non-denial denial of what Hegseth may have ordered.
He's saying there's no second strike?
I don't know. I'm going to find out about it, but Pete said he did not order the death of those 2 men.
What I find striking about that is when the president says that Pete did not order the death of those 2 men. So that seems to suggest that he is confirming that somebody ordered the killing of those 2 survivors, that Pete is denying it. At times, the president says he doesn't know if there was a second strike, but you can tell he is being deliberately evasive. You can tell he doesn't want to express with clarity what Hegseth told him. Whether Hegseth confirmed the second strike, whether Hegseth denied a second strike, whether Hegseth only denied that he gave the explicit order. But if Hegseth gave the order to kill them all, and Admiral Bradley, following that order, engaged in a second strike, then Hegseth bears responsibility for that decision.
Watch that first strike live. As you can imagine, at the Department of War, we got a lot of things to do. So I didn't stick around for the hour and 2 hours, whatever, where all the sensitive site exploitation digitally occurs. So I moved on to my next meeting. A couple of hours later, I learned that that commander had made which he had the complete authority to do, and by the way, Admiral Bradley made the correct decision to ultimately sink the boat and eliminate the threat. He sunk the boat, and eliminated the threat. And it was the right call.
But clearly, Hegseth wants to push that responsibility off on others.
This is what you in the press don't understand. You sit in your air-conditioned offices or up on Capitol Hill and you nitpick and you plant fake stories in the Washington Post about kill everybody, phrases on anonymous sources not based in anything, not based in any truth at all.
Here's a tweet that he put out defending Admiral Bradley. But that way of defending Admiral Bradley also throws him under the bus, because it also suggests that Bradley was responsible, but somehow Hegseth is defending him when it is Hegseth where the buck must stop. And of course, no Twitter campaign about killing people would be complete without an inane tweet, in this case also from Hegseth, using some cartoon character to appear macho. Here's Hegseth pushing out this image. That's right, that comes from our own Secretary of Defense, or what Hegseth would call himself, Secretary of War. And finally, getting back to that Trump clip, no Trump clip on the subject of these boat strikes would be complete without a repetition of the usual falsehood that destroying each of these boats saves 25,000 American lives. Here's Trump with, again, that false statement.
Do you have any concerns about how those boat strikes have been carried out at all?
Very little, because you can see the boats, you can see the drugs in the boats, and each boat is responsible for killing 25,000 Americans. So and they're doing an amazing job.
So that 25,000 number is plucked out of thin air by the president. It supposedly refers to the number of people that would die if everything on that boat was fentanyl, but it is not fentanyl. That is not even a fentanyl trafficking route. So you can't believe some of that video of the president. Perhaps you can't believe any of that video of the president. But here's what we do know, and that is there is concern among Democrats and Republicans that we get to the bottom of this, that there be an investigation. Whether Republicans will be willing to hold people accountable, if past this prologue, that is not encouraging, but nevertheless, they at least seem to be willing to do the oversight necessary to get to the bottom of this. Now, I've introduced multiple resolutions, War Powers resolutions, to put a stop to these illegal strikes. I've introduced them with Tim Kaine, with Rand Paul, a Republican, and we plan to introduce further as necessary. The president is already telling people to stay out of the airspace over Venezuela, certainly very suggestive that they plan now strikes on land as a part of a broader campaign, not of fighting drug trafficking, but of regime change, of wanting to get rid of the murderous dictator that runs Venezuela named Maduro. So part of the arguments that I've made in favor of Congress once again restoring its power, its war power to itself, ending the abrogation of that responsibility, is my concern that this illegal war effort puts at risk the soldiers, sailors, Marines, and others, airmen, who are carrying out these operations. If the conduct is unlawful, then it exposes our service members potentially to liability. And now we see just how graphically that has come to pass if indeed there was this strike killing these civilians. In fact, the Department of Defense War Manual makes it explicit that this would be a war crime. Here's what the manual says. Section 18.3.2.1, clearly illegal orders to commit law of war violations. The requirement to refuse to comply with orders to commit law of war violations applies to orders to perform conduct that is clearly illegal or orders that the subordinate knows, in fact, are illegal. For example, orders to fire upon the shipwrecked would be clearly illegal. So that is the textbook example of something that would be illegal under the laws of war. And again, if these reports are accurate by the Washington Post, it means that this unlawful military campaign, this unconstitutional military campaign, has now veered into the category of war crimes.
I did not personally see survivors, but I stand, because the thing was on fire. It was exploded and fire, smoke, you can't see anything, you got digital. This is called the fog of war.
Ironically, What the Department of Defense is concerned about now is not whether there was a war crime committed by the Secretary of Defense or those acting under his orders, but rather they're interested in trying to bring Mark Kelly, my colleague in the Senate, back into the military, recall him into the military so that he can be court-martialed for making a video in which he said this about the obligation to refuse to carry out illegal orders.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
So Mark Kelly, stating the law, stating the Constitution, they want a court-martial, and yet they are engaged potentially in conduct that may constitute a war crime. That shows just how upside down things are. And in fact, the lawyer, the head lawyer for the Southern Command, having jurisdiction over this part of the world, warned against the legality or illegality of these operations. But his caution that this campaign, before it even began, his reported caution about this was overturned by other lawyers acting from the Office of Legal Counsel at the Justice Department. Now, that Office of Legal Counsel used to be an independent office where an administration could get independent judgment, independent legal judgment. Yes, this is lawful. No, it isn't. Yes, this is constitutional. No, this is unconstitutional. But that office, like so many others in the Trump administration, has now been just filled with partisans who are there to say yes to the president no matter what he wants to do, no matter how lawful, unlawful, constitutional, unconstitutional, or immoral. So that was the top lawyer at Southern Command. The admiral in charge of Southern Command retired early after a short time in that post for reasons that have never been fully explained. But concerns over the lawfulness of this conduct certainly may have been one reason why he left that post. And now we have this terrible mess in which the Defense Department must be held accountable, in which we must get to the bottom of exactly what happened so that we can prevent these abuses of the war power from ever taking place again. So thanks for watching tonight's video. We started doing these nightly videos as a way of identifying something really important that happened today or this week, what we should make of it, and how we can fight back. As you can see, I like to include movie clips. If you have any suggestions for other movie clips I should include in future videos, please share them with us. And thank you for following along.